So we're in the Mishnah on Ayin Hey Amud Aleph. Shtei chatzerot zu lifnim mizu. Erva haprimit v'lo erva chitzona. Haprimit muteret v'chitzona asura. So we mentioned this case prior, but now we're actually now we finally reached the actual Mishnah. So we have the cases. There's two courtyards. Right, one into that leads into the other one, which then leads out into the Zichron. So if there, we are at the Mishnah on Ayin Hey Amud Aleph about there's an inner courtyard and outer courtyard. If the inner courtyard made an Eruv, but the outer one did not, so we would then say that this is kasher, that the Eruv is kasher. So that's the rightmost depiction. Then we go to the middle depiction. So hachitzona v'lo haprimit. If only the outer people made an Eruv, not the inner one. Shtein hasarot. Both of them cannot carry and use the courtyards on Shabbos. Why not? We'll get to it. Right. So the reason why not, it's quoted by Rashi, as we mentioned before, is that if you have somebody that has to use that area and they're not included in the Eruv, that means that the Eruv is no good. Eruv, but on the other hand, Eruv zu la'atzma, but if the outer court made its own Eruv and the inner court made its own Eruv, zo muter b'fnei atzma, v'zeh muter b'fnei atzma. So if they make their own, if they make their own Eruv, so that would work as well. So Rabbi Kiva Omer, Rabbi Kiva Oser Hakitzona, Shadrisa Haregel Oserta. Rabbi Kiva says you can't have the outer one make its own separate Eruv because the people in the inner one, as you see depicted by the nice little feet, since the people in the inner one will walk right on through, so that will create a problem for the outer one. So if the inner and outer are connected, that's not going to work. So the Chachamim Omrim Ein Drisas Haregel Oserta. The Chachamim say that in the case of the both Eruvs, it will not create a problem in the outermost courtyard. So, right, so that you walk on through isn't considered to be enough of reason to say there is no good. So now let's say instead of everybody remembering, so if one of the people on the outside forgot and didn't make an Eruv, it wasn't part of it. The internal one, the inner courtyard Eruv is good, but the outer one is no good. Below Erev, Janice, in the inner courtyard, didn't make it, wasn't part of the Eruv, then neither Eruv is functional, and they're both stuck. Okay, that'd be here. So where's the guy who forgot? Another guy forgot. Okay, then here we got. Then let's go down a little bit more. So now the question is, where do we put the bread? So. If they put courtyards together, made a joint Eruv, and somebody forgot. So again, it says all of them join one big Eruv. So again, so the Eruv will be located in the they build an Eruv together. They put the bread in one of them. And then the one other guy forgot. Maybe the Gimel is the guy who forgot. In this case, so that would make the whole thing problematic. Okay. I know the diagram is not for the next Mishnah. Don't worry. It just happens to have a nice picture of locating that we have the Eruv located nice and easy to find. So, if one person forgot, the ruins it for everybody. But if each courtyard only had one person in it, then they would not need an Eruv. Right? So someone we've been mentioning yesterday about how many people have to have edge requirements for it to be considered to be a mavoi. So apparently a similar thing occurs for a courtyard. If it's simply your personal courtyard, you don't need to make an Eruv in order to enable you to use it, even if it connects to another person's courtyard. It's only an issue if there is if there are multiple people using the courtyard. So the modern day backyard case, so that even if your backyard connects to somebody else's backyard, it wouldn't be a problem. Even if there's like a walk through to do the next and the next person's backyard, it wouldn't be an issue. That'd be the parallel case. Though nowadays, thankfully where we live, there's an Eruv, so we don't need to worry about that. But in case you're at your cottage and you don't have an Eruv set up by your cottage for some reason, that'll be relevant again. So now we're up to the Gemara. So they're talking about the Mishnah, right, where we care about the inner courtyard versus the outer courtyard. Who must all the first half of the Mishnah be according to? Must be according to Rabbi Akiva. The Amar afilu regel muter b'mkoma, seret shel b'mkoma. Even if the person is able to carry in their own courtyard, but they walk through the courtyard, it'll forbid the other courtyard. But the Chacham's opinion is, just like a person who's walking on through, who's the right to be there, won't create any issues. So too, if you do it the other way around, it also won't create any issues. So that's why our Mishnah. So getting back to our nice little feet walking on through. So that's why you've got an issue over here. This can create. So whether or not this case creates an issue, it would have been an error. Right, so Rabbi Akiva says it's a problem because even though they have a right to use it, that anybody who's not part of this Eruv going on through this Eruv will ruin this Eruv. Come and say no, that's not going to create an issue. He has a right to walk through there and already solve the Eruv issue if they made their own Eruv. So his walking on through shouldn't make an issue, but Rabbi Akiva says it is an issue. Okay, so we'll leave that up for a while because we're going to need it for quite a bit. So. Tavan, under the Mishnah, below asura. So if the outer made an Eruv, but the inner one did not, then neither of them can carry in their courtyards. Mani, who this is according to, Ilam Rabbi Akiva, my regel asura. If we're talking about Rabbi Akiva, who cares whether or not it's a regel asura? Even if the person was allowed to enter that area, it would create an issue. Even if it was permitted, that person had rights to walk through there, would be an issue. No, must be Rabbi. So would it be the Rabbanan who have a differentiate between the person who's allowed to walk through versus not allowed to walk through? No, Olam Rabbi Akiva. No, really, it's Rabbi Akiva. Lozu Azuk Dadi. They're saying not only this but that. The Rabbi Akiva thinks that's a problem not only in the case of where there's where only the outer courtyard didn't make only the outer courtyard made an Eruv and where did not is usher, but he's also saying that not only that, even both made an Eruv, that's still usher because it's somebody who isn't part of the Eruv is just walking on through, and that'll generate the problem. Okay. Now another part of the Mishnah. Tanan. Erva zula atzma, Zoom muter b'fnei atzma, v'zoom muter b'fnei atzma. So, if each of the courtyards made their own Eruv, so each of them are allowed to carry in their own courtyard, but they can't carry between. Tama de Erva, halo Erva, shtein asura. So this only works because they both made an Eruv. If they didn't make an Eruv, then they would both be forbidden. Ha, haita da ama regal muteret eno seret regal asura seret. But didn't we teach that person who's allowed to walk through doesn't forbid the area, but somebody who is forbidden does? So money has. So how does that tie in with above? So Elam Rabbi Akiva, afilu regel muteret nami, Allah Rabbanan he. No. So wouldn't you say that since according to Rabbi Akiva, it wouldn't matter whether or not you made an Eruv in the inner courtyard or not. If the inner courtyard and outer courtyard aren't connected, it'll always be usher. So why are we bothered with another case? So Rabbanan, he'd rather not according to the Chacham's opinion, who say that as long as there's a inner courtyard made an Eruv, they're walking on through, and now will not create an issue. The Od, even if it's not the same one as the outer courtyard. Rabbi Akiva, Rachel Rabbi Akiva. And also the reason why we'd want to say this now, or we didn't say it earlier, is because it would be odds are that since the Seifa is Rabbi Akiva, so odds are the Reisha is since the latter half is Rabbi Akiva, then which Rabbi Akiva argues. So that means we have Rabbi Akiva only quoted once, so odds are anybody's disagreeing in another case. So odds are you don't have it all according to Rabbi Akiva, because if so, that would be confusing. Okay, so right, so that's the question. So, but no. So the other option is no. Kula Rabbi Akiva. No, really, the whole thing according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that another person having access is not part of your Eruv, is a problem. So the Chisuri Metzger Hachitani. And so we're basically we're missing a little some of the words from the we're missing some of the words from the Mishnah is incomplete. So here's what we wanted to fill all the blanks. This is how it would read. So Erva Zula Atzma, Vazula Atzma. They each made their own independent Eruvs. Zuma Ter B'Fnei Atzma, Zuma Ter B'Fnei Atzma. They each made their own independent Eruvs. That would be fine. The Metzger Memoriam. When would this be the case? Sha'asta Daka. If they made a Daka, which you said is that little gate or obstruction between the two. Aloasta Daka Chitzon Asura Dever B'Kiva. But if you didn't make this nice little here's our Daka down here. Didn't make that Daka, that would create an issue. Right? According to Rabbi Akiva, that would make the outer one forbidden. That's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Rabbi Akiva oser tachitzona b'pnei shadrisa taregal oseret. Because Rabbi Akiva forbids the outer one since anybody's walking on through, great, it's an issue. Chachamim omrim andrisa taregal oseret. Chachamim say no, the person simply walking on through but not actually using it isn't enough to generate an issue. That would solve our problem. Again, so the Daka creates enough of a separation that way, even though the people might still walk out that way, it's enough to differentiate the two chatzerot. Mati for Bibi bar Abaye. Im hayu shel yachidim ein tzrichim la'arev. So Bibi, son of Abaye, is questioning based on the fact, is wondering what about the case where if each of the courtyards is owned by an individual, there's no need for an Eruv for either of them. Hashal Rabin Tzrichim la'arev. But if it would, this then implies that if it had belonged to multiple people, you would need an Eruv. Alma regal hoter b'mkoma and oseret regal asura oseret. So this would seem to imply, to follow the Chacham's opinion, that a person passing on through, if they're allowed to be there, then it doesn't create an issue. But if it's a regal asura, meaning somebody who's just not allowed to carry an Eruv in this chatzeret in general, then it would be a problem. This is against Rabbi Yana, is against Rabbi Akiva. So which one is it? So then we have another problem with our Mishnah. It's according to Rabbi Akiva, and so Od Mati Ravina. So here's Ravina's question. Shakach achad min achitzona v'lo irev. So if the outer courtyard forgot and didn't make an eruv. Primit muteret v'achitzona asura. So if somebody in the outer courtyard forgot, then the inner courtyards still fine. They're eruv. Shakach achad min primit v'lo irev shein asura. So if the inner courtyard forgot, then it didn't make an eruv. Then they're both forbidden. Amad deshakach halo shokach shtein mutarot. Issue being is that because somebody forgot, and if they had it, then it should be fine. Alma regal hamuteret and oseret regal asura oseret. So this implies that again, the case we both have two eruvs, that seemingly the issue comes down to whether or not that the person is allowed to carry in general, and but it was walking on through, doesn't create an issue, or somebody who hadn't made an eruv walks on through, that creates the issue. So which one is it? So this seems to go against our understanding of Rabbi Akiva also. So Elakiat Rabin Amar Rabbi Yana. Rather, when Rabin came back from Israel, he had a different version of Rabbi Yana that'll solve our problems. So Shalosh Machlokot B'Davar. There's three Machlokot going on. So let's split them up. Anakama Savar Regal Hamuteret Ein Oseret Regal Asura Oseret. So there's three opinions, not two. There's three. The first opinion, the first part of the Mishnah, is according to the Tanakama, does that that a person who's allowed to carry going on through does not, I mean, if the inner courtyard had an Eruv, it wouldn't make a problem with the outer courtyard. Regel hasura outside, somebody from the inner courtyard who is not allowed to carry, meaning either the person forgot, or if the inner courtyard didn't have an Eruv, that would generate an issue. Bikiva savar afilu regel hamuteret oseret. Rabbi Kiva says somebody who's not included in the Eruv walking on through on a regular basis creates an issue, right? So the fact that the inner courtyard and outer courtyard have separate Eruvs means the outer courtyard Eruv is no good. Rabbanan batrai savri. But the Rabbanan in the last case hold differently. That Yeshem Sherega Moteret and Oseret Kachregel Asura and Oseret. The Rabbanan say that no, just like if a person who's made an Eruv while walking on through doesn't create any problems. Similarly, somebody who's just walking on through, even if they're not allowed to carry, it shouldn't create any issues for the Eruv that's in place here. So that's a breakdown of all three, and that's the conclusion. And then that solves all of our problems and the inconsistencies, because there's three separate opinions, and that explains why it looks like they're arguing, because, well, they are. So now now going on to analyze another part of the Mishnah. So not new Eruvin b'makom echad b'shakach echad b'nei chitzoni. So now the question is, right? So somebody forgot, then the courtyard is one for each. So my makom echad. So where is this place that it was placed? That they're all in one place, and how does that work? So Amar Rav Yehuda Amarav Chitzona. So they get the Siman is Atzma Beit Yechida Ravina Lo Mashakaf B'Tzim. Again, this is mnemonic. If you're trying to memorize the Gemara, again, you'll see all these words come up. But if not, don't worry about it, because it's basically they're just keywords from the Amaflafit here, from the upcoming Gemara. So the Rav Yehuda says in the name of her.
You're freezing up a little bit.
Okay. So I'll read the previous line again. So we are debating when we say that
Sorry, Rabbi, you froze up for about 30 seconds right at the top of the next step.
Okay. So I'm going back a bit on where it says Nanu Eruvin b'makom echad. So again, we're on Amud Aleph towards the bottom by the two dots there. So again, they put their Eruv in one place. So the question is, my makom echad. What do we mean they all put their Eruv in the same place? How is that not one Eruv? What is going on here? How does this work? So, Amar Rav Yehuda Amarav. So I think we're going to be on here. So this is we're at this diagram over here, I believe, unless there's another picture of that. No, we're still that picture. Okay. What do you mean they put them in the same place? And which house do we say, is it going in? Is it one combined Eruv? So we're gonna get into that issue. Okay, so Amar Yehuda Amarav Chitzona. The place they put it all in is in the outer courtyard, one of the houses. Umay Karula Makom Echad Makom Yuchad L'Shtei. And why do they call it one location? Because there's one place or both courtyards to place the Eruv. And again, and all of the Eruvs, all the contributions are all placed in the same house, in the same location for the Eruv. And that's why we get the issue of who carried first, of one from the inner courtyard or the outer courtyard forgetting creates an issue, because they're all joining the same Eruv and it's in the outer courtyard. So if anybody forgets, that means that our Eruv is no good. So now we're moving on to Ayin Hey and Bet. Tanya Nami Haki, not new Eruvin b'chitzona, b'shakach echad, vein min chitzona, uvein min apnimi, below irev, shtein asurot. Similarly, we were taught in a Breita that if all of these two groups put their Eruv in the outer courtyard, and one from either one forgot, whether from the inner courtyard or the outer courtyard, and then he didn't join the Eruv, both courtyards can't carry on Shabbos. Not new Eruvin b'pnimi, but Including the area was in the inner courtyard. But even if you put it in the inner courtyard, again, see if you move the little bread pile to the inner courtyard, but if one people in the inner courtyard forgot, still have an issue. But if the person forgot was in the outer courtyard, so Rabbi Kiva says no good because it's all or nothing. But in this case, the inner courtyard is allowed, while the outer courtyard is not. Because the inner courtyard, they properly have an Eruv, everybody's included in that area, therefore they can all carry the inner courtyard, but the outer courtyard is not a properly done Eruv, so therefore we can just treat the inner courtyard as operating separately from the outer courtyard. So, Amar le Rabba Bar Chanan leBayt. But Rabba Bar Chanan doesn't like this case. He asked Abai, Ma'ishnel Rabbana da Amri Pimi Mutaret, Mishum da Achta Dasha Mishtamsha. So, Rabbi Kiva Nami Teichad Dasha Utashamish. So Rabba Bar Chanan asked Abai, wait, how's this working? Why is the inner courtyard permitted? Or if we say that simply because they can, close the door, so to speak, on the courtyard, and therefore they can treat themselves as their separate courtyard. Should Rabbi Kiva also allow you to simply close the door? And then that would also make it mutter. So Amrle, Abai responds back, Eruv Margila. No. That Eruv is deposited according, it was put there in order to have access to it. So therefore, that's why Rabbi Kiva says it's a problem, because the intent of and the setup was people in the outer courtyard are going to come into the inner courtyard to get their food, and they probably still will. So it's not really fair to not let them have access to their bread simply because you want to carry. So that'll be the issue. Yeah, again, they couldn't take their bread out and eat them at home, but they could still walk into the other person's house and eat their lunch, and then eat their bread and then leave. Because we're also referring to the case where everybody, your Eruv basically amounted to, your 2 challahs that you're going to have for lunch. Again, you have 3 meals. You're having your 3 meals on Shabbos. You have shtei suda per person. So basically, you cook your food for Shabbos, like the challah portion of it, and you put it all in one person's house. And then you're like, I want to go eat now, so I want my Eruv. So you're going to come and take it. So it's going to be an issue of access. So Rabbanan Nami Eruv Margila. But the Rabbanan, what about them? So I also think that they're going to go get their Eruv. So and that it would be normal to get in there. So Amra Latakune Shitaftich Velol Avute. No. So then the answer is people in the inner courtyard can turn to the outer courtyard and say, no, we only did this joint Eruv to make sure that you guys could carry too. But if you guys are going to ruin it for us, then we're going to simply exclude you from the Eruv, meaning as in our Eruv will work internally. Not that you can't walk in and grab your food, but we'll say that the Eruv is not, it's not both of us only for us, but so as in they can't really carry the bread back to their courtyard, but they could at least, still they'll eat it. So Rabbi Akiva, Nami Temal, Zikuni Shita, Tchav Lo Vavu. Why can Rabbi Akiva also say, but you shouldn't have you done this in a way that's helpful, not hurtful, in terms of making this joint Eruv? So the Amrullah, Mevatlin Lach Rashuti. So Rabbi Akiva would say, no, they renounce their rights, so that way the inner courtyard can carry, the outer one can't, and that would be the case. Then they still would not be able to carry, and so the only case where Rabbi Akiva allows is if they explicitly renounce their rights. If they didn't, it would be an issue still. But the Chachamim won't allow you to do bittul reshut. So therefore, that's why they say that it has to be that the inner courtyard simply closes the door on the outer courtyard. So let's say that Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan line up with their machloket of the Chachamim and Rabbi Akiva. So now we're trying to figure out, and this is in regards to the again, Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan had a machloket. Are you allowed to be mevatel mechatzer lachatzer? Can you give up your rights to one courtyard to give up its rights versus another courtyard? Is that a valid usage of bittul? So 1 second, let me see. Do we have a diagram that goes along with this? No. Okay, so we'll stick with these pictures because we're just playing around within here. Again, can this can A negate to B and vice versa? Are you allowed to do such an activity? Okay. So now so then how does that line up? So the Shmuel Amar Karabanan, that Shmuel says like the Chachamim that you cannot be mevatel from a chatzer to chatzer. Rabbi Yochanan Damar Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Yochanan would then hold like Rabbi Akiva that you can be mevatel from chatzer to chatzer, right? So that's the way it goes. So So the question is, can we actually precisely line up with two machlokot or not? So Amar L'cha Shmuel, Anand Amr Rabbi Akiva. No, Shmuel could say, actually, even Rabbi Akiva agrees to me that you're not allowed to be bittul b'chatzer lechatzer. Adkan lo ka'amar Rabbi Akiva hacha ela b'shtei chatzerot zolif mizu the asran hadadi alhata mi ka'asran hadadi. So he only allows that Rabbi Akiva's allowance of bittul b'chatzer lechatzer is only during a case where they would be forbidden for each other otherwise. In any other case, we'd say that you can't do that. So generally says you can't do bittul from chatzer to chatzer. Just in this one limited case, we'll say it's fine. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu l'Rabbanan. Rabbi Yochanan says that even according to the Chachamim, they also would say that you can do that you can do bittul mechatzer to chatzer. So why would that be? That ad kalu kamer Rabbanan halcha al da'am rala ad mevalta li ka'asrat alai. The issue is that here that you generally could do bittul from chatzer to chatzer. They wouldn't, because by doing bittul then it makes it asr for me, and I don't want to do that. But in other cases where there's no prohibition that'll occur to you, then there should be bittul. Therefore, we'd say that therefore that they're not the same. That therefore you can't really assign Rabbi Yochanan to say Rabbi Akiva and that Rabbanan are like Shmuel, because really this case could be an exception for either opinion. So therefore, we can't necessarily fully line up the two machlokot. Okay. So now we're going back to discuss the case of it being owned by an individual. If the courtyards are only owned by an individual. So Amar of Yosef, Ani Rabbi Ayu Shlosha Asurim. So Rav Yosef says it's similar to what Rabbi Yehuda teaches us, that if there were three people living in the two courtyards, it would be forbidden. Amar lahu Rabibi, lo tisitule ana amreta niale. Mishmei de Rav Ada bar Ava amreta niale. Hovanikori behen rabim bachitzona. Oh no, so then Rabibi says, no, that's wrong. I told him, and I told him the name of Ada bar Ava. And so it means it means that I'm not sure he's arguing about the he's not arguing. He's saying, yeah, you got that wrong. Let me rephrase this. We're not saying Rebbe has nothing to do with this statement. So what is the statement really supposed to be then? So rather, here's what this full statement is supposed to be. So the issue is that why is it forbidden? Is because you call the outer courtyard is now called Rabim. Rav Yosef Mare de Avram Rabim Rebbe Ichlafli. And Rav Yosef says, you're right. Mare de Avram, basically he's saying, my God, master of Avram. You're right. I made a mistake, and you're right. I gave it an accurate version of the teaching, and the halacha didn't really change at the end of the day. But you should be stating things properly in this case. So Shmuel Amar La'olam Mutarot Ad Shushnayim B'Pnimit B'Echad B'Chitzona. But Shmuel said no, it's going to be mutar unless there are two in the inner courtyard and one in the outer courtyard. So that's what you need in order for it to become an issue. Amar Rabbi Elazar Begoy Harehu Karabi. Rabbi Elazar says, actually, if there was two people, but one of those people is a non-Jew, that's an issue. We could consider the non-Jew to be like he's a multitude. So Ma'ishna Yisrael Delo Asar Man Yada Yada Uman Delo Yada Savar Aruve Arev going nami. Aminat yada yada lo yada davar agure agire ogar. So why? So again, so why is the Jew? Why are we different between the Jew and the non-Jew? So because somebody who knows that if somebody knows that only one person lives there, and one who does not know there would think there's an Eruv. So similarly, in the case of the non-Jew, we should say that if there's only person who lives there knows, the one who doesn't live there would think that he rented out the right from the non-Jew. So therefore, you could still let him slide without doing an Eruv. No. Stam goy ita ilgar mifapai. No. The answer is that no, you can't simply say that people will assume that the non-Jew had rented from you, because everybody knows that if they're non-Jews involved with anything with Jews, we'll tell everybody about it. Meaning because they tend to say like, oh, can you believe what my my Jewish neighbor did? He rented my usage of the courtyard for Saturday. Like I have no idea what's going on. This is ridiculous. And so if nobody's heard the non-Jewish neighbor, prattling on about my weird Jewish friend who keeps renting my backyard, then odds are you didn't do it, because there's no way he would ever forget that, because it's just that strange. So yeah. So similarly, that's how many people who've been Shabbos goys for at various times. They will remember they were somebody Shabbos goy for a very long time, because it's just that memorable. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So Rav Yehuda said, "Name was Shmuel. Asara batim zeh lifnim mizeh. Imi notain et eruvo v'dayo." Rav Yehuda said, the name of Shmuel, that even if there's 10 houses, so then that's you just put an inner one. Here you go again. We've got all these. You got this nice, super long stretch. Stick an inner one. Makes your life easy. Of this nice beautiful diagram over here, right? Make our lives easy. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Afilu Chitzon. Rabbi Yochanan says even the outer one. So Chitzon Beit Sharu. Oh wait, what? How does that work? Is the outer residence a gatehouse in regards to the innermost one? So why is it part of the Eruv? I don't understand. No chitzon shopnim. It means on the outermost house of the innermost courtyard. Okay, so that's the way you would do it. So how does that work? Marsavar Beit Shar Diachid Shmei Beit Shar Marsavar Loshe Beit Shar. The question is whether or not you can count the inner gatehouse as a gatehouse, meaning does it connect or not? Right? Is it good? So Rabbi Yochanan holds that it's not considered to be a valid Beit Shar, and therefore all of them would have to contribute. Okay, we'll try and get to the Mishnah. So forgive me if I go a little quicker for this last little bit. Hopefully it'll still be clear. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravu, Amar Rav, Shtei Chatzerot Ushlosh Batim Beneihem Zeba Derav Zeh Noten Erevo Bezeh. Rav Nachman said there's 2 courtyards and 3 houses, and this one has to go through the other one, and they put their and put the Erev in the other one. Zeba Derav Zeh Noten Erevo Bezeh. And this one goes plus the other one, places it there. What does that generate? Zeh Nasa Beit Shar Lazeh V'Zeh Nasa Beit Shar Lazeh. So each of them are using the other one. So this is the case where there's 2 entrances into the Yerushat Rabim. They're each considered to be a Beit Shar or Geras, the other one. Emsa'i Havalei Beit Sheminichem Bo Eruv in Sarich L'Tenet Tapat. And the middle one can just be the place where the Eruv is held and wouldn't need to contribute towards the total Eruv. Okay, so that's the here we go. Basically, so this is the orders of the chutzner and the houses, and there's all these nice ways to go back on through. So at the end of the day, when there's 2 entrances out, right? So we say that this group would have to put their Eruvs in here. This group puts their Eruv also in the middle, and the middle one will at this point will reach the minimum number value you need for your Eruv total, and therefore we say the middle one isn't forced to collect because they're holding it, but the outer ones will, and then we'll be good. Okay. So the badik lahu rachava l'rabbanan. So then now we've got Rechava questions the rest of the Chachamim. So now once we mentioned that, so now we're going to analyze a bit further. So if we have two courtyards, there's two houses in the middle. What if they have this case going and each of them put their own Eruv in the house on the other side? See where the arrows go? So in one of those arrows, right, they came in this side, but their arrow, the other one came there, but again, they're all connected and they're in the two inner houses. The Eruv work or not? Me mishabele lagabe dahai bayit lagabe high bayit beit shar lagabe dahai beit shar lagabe dahai bayit. Would we say that it's a house with regards to one and a beit shar with the other one, and vice versa? Can we have it double counting in both directions? So Amar le shnehem lo kanu eruv. So said no, there's no eruv in this case. Why? Manavshach e beit shar mishabele hanoten tervo beit shar sadar repesen eno eruv. If you say that you calling this house a Beit Jar, then it's no good. And as we mentioned, if you put we just mentioned earlier, if you place your Eruv in a gatehouse, porch, or balcony, it's not a valid Eruv. And if you are considering to be a house, then you're then carrying it to a house where you didn't make an Eruv, which is a problem because it has to be the house will be part of the Eruv then. So, and how is this different from what Rabbi stated? Because what did Rabbi say? He said he told two to go make an Eruv for all of us. One of them made the Eruv Erev Shabbos. One of them made it during Ben Hashmashot, right during the twilight time. This Erev Allah B'Bod Yom, Nechal Erevo Ben Hashmashot, V'zeh Eruvo, Zeh She'eruv Allah Ben Hashmashot, Nechal Erevo M'Shetet Shach. Shnehem Kano Eruv. So, and both these people, their Eruvs went into back at the right time, and therefore both of these Eruvs should work. Even though you had two people setting up the Eruv, but both of them should work. We're being makel for both of them because we love to make the more makel shikta by Eruvin, so it should be fine. No, that's not. We say haki hash. That's really no. You can't compare the case of you gave the Eruv to two people, you did it 2 times, and then they were eating at different times. Like that's not the same as our case of putting the Eruv in 2 different locations that are double counting. Hatam safek yamama safek laila kaminkura minkura milta avalhacha lagabe hada bayit lagabe dahai bayit. So no, the difference there is that's a general suffix of is this day or is this night by Ben Hashmashot, and when your Eruv goes into effect, does it go into effect at sundown, or does it go into effect at Ben Hashmashot? Like that's machloket, and that's a suffix which one it is. Again, because Ben Hashmashot is maybe night, maybe day. But e lagabe high Beit Shar, lagabe high nine Beit Shar. So there's a difference between the type of machloket, right? So whether it's night or day, right? So it's really it's a question about a questionable time, so you might not get it precisely right. But in regards to this house treated like it's a gatehouse or like a house, so there's a definitive answer to that. And it's not because people looking at it get confused. It's because you determine how you're using this house for Shabbos, and that would be our issue. Okay, so Hadran Allah Hadar. Okay. Again, just to summarize what we covered today. Today we covered the cases of an inner courtyard connected to an outer courtyard, where the inner courtyard has to walk to the outer courtyard, and we're debating where the Eruv is placed and whether or not the person traveling on through would generate an issue or not. And again, we discussed the difference between the Tanakama, Rabbi Kiva, and the Chachamim. Is it based on somebody who's not part of the Eruv walking on through being a problem? Is it a problem of anybody walking on through being an issue? Or do we say that it doesn't matter as long as there's a valid Eruv in one of those locations? Even if somebody walking on through, it doesn't generate an issue. So now I just wanted to mention that